Welcome, everybody. Doug Barry here. I appreciate you being with me. This is a kind of a last minute live I've decided to do. Here it is, Friday, the 26th of May, and we are wrapping up today. We had the doors open for about the last 10 days, special BREP, Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course launch. And we've decided to basically put out an offer to everybody out there to take advantage of this opportunity right now to really step up and take the time to be better prepared. Of course, that means taking the steps, actionable steps. It all begins, of course, with deep prayer. We want to make sure that we're in prayer all the time, focusing on what God wants us to do, what He calls us to do. But we wanted to share with you some thoughts on this. I wanted to give you just kind of a last minute. The doors close at 7 o'clock Central Time. But I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world right now and just kind of address a key question. Have the freedoms that we've been blessed with made us vulnerable? And really what I mean by that is it so easy for us to be in a situation where we are living this comfort and convenience that we have been blessed with? And it is a blessing. There's no question about it. I like convenience. I like the comforts that we have, but I also don't want to let them make me weak. There's a great quote out there that the more comfortable you become, the softer you'll get. If you get too comfortable, you'll get soft. If you get soft, you very easily can become weak. And if you become weak, you won't be able to fight. You won't be able to stand up very well. And if you can't fight and stand up in the middle of a threat, and this could be spiritual or physical, then you can lose your life or you can lose the battle. So again, to rephrase that quote, if you become too comfortable, you can get soft. If you get soft, you can get weak. If you get weak, you can't really fight or stand up very well. And if you can't fight or stand up very well, you can lose. You can lose those moments where you really need the victory. You can lose that battle. It could be physical. It could be life and death. But in many cases for us, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual even. So we absolutely want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to take the steps not to become involved in those things that allow us to become too soft. And again, comfort's fine. It has its place. I like indoor plumbing. I like running water. I like air conditioning. I like heating, on a cold winter night. I mean, I like those things. I like the comforts of my vehicle. I like the comforts of my home. But I also need to take steps myself personally to not become so comfortable that when wonderful things just fall in my lap, I just take advantage of them and fall into letting them kind of, I guess, cause me to become distracted or weakened by that. And I'm talking about things like, again, excessive food, excessive comforts, excessive, laziness, procrastination, things of that nature, things like that. So we want to be thinking really constantly about what steps we can take to keep ourselves kind of on edge so we stay sharp. My son and I just did a podcast, and the podcast, we talk about relaxing, taking it easy. It just came out today. In fact, go to the BR Coalition YouTube channel that you're on right now and check out the latest podcast that my son and I just posted. And it really talks about how our routines can really be challenging for us, and they can be hurtful to us if we're not careful. Now, routines are good. They have their place, no question about it. But sometimes we become so comfortable in those routines that if something disrupts them, it really throws us off. Don't throw off even my prayer schedule. Don't throw off my exercise routines. Don't throw off, and I get that. I get my workouts in, 5-6 days a week, and there's a certain time of the day I normally get them done. And if something interferes with that, it can very, very easily cause me to get a little challenged by that. And even, we can let ourselves get upset, get in a bad mood if things interfere with our routine. Because again, we can become comfortable in those routines. We can become so comfortable that it allows us to get a little bit soft in not being able to adapt. Now, think about where we are in our world right now when it comes to things like convenience of food. We can go to the grocery store at any time. We can buy whatever we want for the most part. Normally, our grocery stores, a lot of places are open 24/7. If not, they're at least 7 days a week. Gas stations, convenience stores, and they're everywhere for most of us. This is something we're very used to. We're also very used to being able to pick up the phone, call 911, and someone comes and saves us if there's a problem. Now, these things are good. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that we have that. But the concern is if that is taken away from us, if something happens and your phone service is down, you can't call 911, or something happens and the grocery store is closed up for some reason, or heaven forbid, the trucks stop supplying the grocery stores with food. On average, most of our grocery stores are about 3 days from being empty if the trucks stop bringing food in. That's under normal usage. For those who live in places, where there are hurricanes, for example, like down in Florida, or you've got places, the Gulf, Mexico, or other locations where a storm can come in fast, you can see it coming. What happens a lot of times? People rush the stores and they're buying certain items and they'll clear the shelves. So in an emergency, that food can be cleared very quickly. So if that happens and grocery stores are closed, if it happens and you don't have access to get to the grocery store to get this item or that item, or can't get to the gas station, for example, what do you already have maybe stored up, ready to go? Food, water, or in the case of gasoline, do you normally keep your gas tank at a certain place? Like, to me, if it's half full, I consider that empty. So when my tank starts getting close to half, I fill it up. Oftentimes I'll do it around 3/4, actually. This is a way of keeping me sharp enough so that if there's a problem and gas stations get shut down, or the payment system of gas stations gets shut down, and that's happened before. I remember not too long ago, my son, it was in a certain part of the country and this happened, and people couldn't buy gas if they didn't have cash only. And he did, so he was able to. But a lot of people don't think about what happens if gas stations are shut down. So storing up in gasoline, making sure that your gas tank has a certain amount in it, making sure you have some cash out of the bank if you can, so that you have access to some means of purchase power if banks get shut down. But the conveniences that we have, so simple. I ordered some stuff online today, and it'll be here. Some of it'll be here tomorrow. That's the convenience that we have been so blessed with. We order something one day, it's here the next. And if it's longer than 2, 3, 4 days, some people are getting a little frustrated. I got to have this right now. We have these great conveniences, and they are, again, wonderful. But have they made us vulnerable? So we want to encourage you, and we do this all the time in BRC. And this will be a short live. I just wanted to get on for a few minutes and talk about this a little bit and remind you that at 7 o'clock tonight, we encourage you to go out, by the way, to brcoalition.com and check out the BREP course that we have there. 7 o'clock, we got a special going on it right now, and we're gonna shut that special down by 7 o'clock tonight Central Time. You can still have access to the course later, but great special right now on it. And what we want to do is encourage you to be considering if the freedoms and the conveniences that we have made us a little soft, or if we haven't taken any good steps really to be better prepared, then it would be a really good idea to get started on that sooner than later. There's an old saying that the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The next best time to plant that tree is today. Well, you can take that into the idea of being better prepared. The best time to start getting better prepared is 10 years ago. The next best time to start is right now, today. And so if you go to the grocery store later tonight or tomorrow, pick up a few extra cans of food, pick up some extra bottles of water, maybe a case of bottled water. Make sure you're storing up some little food and water and putting it in a place in your home that is set apart so that it doesn't get tapped into. Obviously, pay attention to your expiration dates. You can rotate your stocks so you don't lose food. You're using it up before it expires, but take the steps to start getting ready for that. Now, there are a lot of people, of course, who don't know exactly what steps to take. They don't talk about or think about, well, what do I need? Food, water. I mean, where do I go with this? That's what we've done with the BREP course, is create a very simple four-tier, it's a 4-tier based on threes, and it's a 4-tier, 5-category approach. The 5 categories are food, water, shelter, medical, and defense. These are the 5 key things that we need every day, really, for the most part, all over the world. Food, water, shelter, medical, in case you need care, you want to have access to it at all times, and defense, protection, in other words, safety, law enforcement. And if that's being stretched thin or it's defunded, as we know in some places, then it's important for us to know that we must be our own first defender, our own first responder. So these are 5 key categories we focus on in the BREP course, the Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course. And in those 5, we try to break it down so that we think about the importance of 4 different tiers. First tier would be, number 1 is, do you have at least 3 days of food, water, shelter, medical, and defense? They think about what happens to a flower and how easily it can wilt if it's not watered properly, if it's not watered the right way at the right time. So it's important that we take the time and understand the importance of even taking care of a flower. And so you water it when it needs to be watered to keep it alive. Well, the same with the human body. We actually need to make sure that we understand the body needs about a gallon of water a day, roughly, in order for it to survive. And that's going to vary depending on a person, a small child compared to someone who may be a nursing mother or pregnant mother, or someone who's exerting a lot of energy outside, in the heat, then it's going to be a little bit more. But what we're saying is we need at least a gallon of water per day on average to be reasonably healthy. And a lot of people don't have anything stored up. A lot of people don't have any water stored up at all. So we do need to be thinking about how we are taking these very important pieces and putting into practice the steps that are necessary to make sure that we are covering our bases. So we start with 3 days. That's tier 1, 3 days: food, water, medical care. Maybe it's medications that you might need, or just making sure you have general medical, bandages and so forth in case there's an accident of some sort. Of course, shelter. You make sure that you've got good shelter to protect you from the elements. And then defensive measures. Are you safe wherever you are? After 3 days, we focus on 3 weeks, and then everything kind of ups a little bit. And then from 3 weeks, 3 months. And if you're getting to 3 weeks into 3 months of some sort of crisis that requires you to have enough food, water, care, shelter, medical, all that for 3 months, then you have to realize that things are not good in society. And so from that point, 3 months, the big jump to a year plus, where we're trying to help understand what it is to be sustainable, growing a garden, raising animals. These types of things help us be sustainable. So it's important that we take the steps necessary to be sustainable for a lifetime. That's the goal, right? To try to have our lives filled up with these things that we need so much. So again, 5 key categories: food, water, shelter, medical, and defense. 4 tiers: 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, year plus. Now, those are the things that we focus on in the BREP course, the Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course, short for that BREP. Become a BREPper as opposed to a prepper, and understand that this is something that we used to do common sense wise not too long ago. It wasn't too long ago. You go back, 75 years, 50 years, 75 years, probably 75, at least 100. And what you found was our great-grandparents, great-grandparents, to them, the idea of having extra food and water made perfect sense, especially those who survived the Depression. If anybody got through the Depression, you saw how they were careful about things. Hear stories of someone who went through the Depression using a bar of soap until it was gone completely. And people today will get down to a small piece of the soap and they'll just throw it away. You go to a hotel and use the soap from a hotel. And a lot of times they have bottles now where it's liquid, but in the places where you have little bar soap, there are people, they use it one time and throw it out. That is not how people treated it after living through the Depression. They understood what it meant because common sense told them we could lose this. We don't want to risk not having the basics that we need, even soap, a bar of soap. So again, understanding that common sense said years ago that you just did this. You took care of your health. You ate good because you knew you needed to. Wintertime's coming up, flu season's coming on, and people realize you need to take care of your health. You need to get strong and healthy, be able to handle colds, flus, sicknesses. So we do need to realize that common sense is not something that should ever go out of style. But we can become so comfortable and so soft that we can even lose a grasp of common sense. Common sense says I don't overextend myself when it comes to anything. I don't work so hard outside in the heat that I end up with heat exhaustion. I don't spend more money than I have. I don't end up just in debt. And a lot of people do max out their credit cards, take out loans left and right because they want things, but they have no real solid way of paying for it. Common sense says that's not a good idea. Common sense also says that grocery stores are not impenetrable of being shut down. Banks, as we've seen lately, all right, with the Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, that banks can collapse, they can shut down. And we hear about this periodically. And then, of course, there's a lot of warning out there about a collapse, financial collapse, and the collapse of the dollar and so forth. So many people will take steps to try to protect themselves in those areas. But when it comes to things like food and water, medical, shelter defense, a lot of people won't. We always encourage in the BREP course, and we do this with BRC all the time. And if anybody's ever heard me speak on this, you know that I am adamant about building community. Build community. Start working with people, get to know other people, see who's on the same page, people who are practicing common sense when it comes to being better prepared. Build community with people who have skills. They have skills and they have the ability to bring something to the table in a crisis. Maybe they know how to grow a garden. Maybe they're good with medical issues. Maybe they know how to repair things. Maybe they know how to fight and defend and protect. Maybe they have a really good grasp of things like purifying water, which is, again, one of the key things we are all going to have because we need it right now anyway. You can go about 3 days without water. You can go about 3 weeks without food, but it's going to be a brutal 3 weeks. And if you go 3 days without water and then die of dehydration, that is a very, very, very brutal death, dehydration. So we cannot take seriously enough common sense steps to be prepared in these 5 key categories. Again, brcoalition.com is where you can find access to this course, the BREP course. 7 o'clock, about an hour and 40 minutes or so. And I'm going to wrap this up in just a few minutes here, but about an hour and 40 minutes, and we're going to close the doors on the deal on this course. But you can still go out later, check it out, but I encourage you to get in on it now while things are good, while the deal is good. And I really, really cannot emphasize enough that if and when a crisis hits, if you haven't built the community, if you haven't spent time trying to develop friendships with others, then you'll find yourself in a real world of hurt. Because in a crisis of any kind, natural disaster, financial crisis, World War III, which is being talked about, we need others. And so taking the steps in advance to develop those relationships and to really build that rapport with other people and find out who can bring what to the table, what skills, and you get people thinking the right way, you're going to find yourself very, very in a much better position, let me put it that way, if you have done these things in advance. Remember this also. The mindset is really where all this begins. Rooted in prayer, of course. Everything is rooted in prayer, but the mindset is first and foremost here. We have to have the right way of thinking on this. It's kind of like when a doctor looks at someone and says, you know, you're in really bad shape. You got some serious health problems. And if you don't take certain steps, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble in the not too distant future. Maybe you got 6 months, maybe a year, stroke, heart attack, possible death, you name it. So if that were presented to someone, the first thing they'd have to do is change their mindset. They'd have to realize, you know what? I realize that it is important for me to take the necessary steps to redirect the way my health is going so that I don't have this horrible death or this really destructive direction. It might not even be death. It might just be you're going to live the rest of your life, and it could be 15, 20, 30, 40 years, but they're going to be miserable years because you have a mindset that causes you or prompts you to live a certain way, eat a certain way, not exercise, you name it, and put your health in a very, very bad state. So you got to change the mindset. It's no different than when it comes to self-defense. The first rule of self-defense is your number one weapon is your mind. It's your brain. It's what you're thinking. It's how you're perceiving things, and then how you respond to that perceived threat. So we really have to be thinking about our mindset regarding preparation, especially when we hear the stories of threats against our power grid, when we know that there have been cyber attacks against airports. We had a dozen major airports in the United States, including Chicago O'Hare, LaGuardia in New York, Hartford down in Atlanta, and 9 others, 12 major airports in America simultaneously several months ago. Their websites, the airport websites, were hacked by a group out of Russia. Not the military, according to the report, it was just some private group, but they proved that it could be done. Not too long after that, 14 hospitals, not just in the US, but elsewhere, were also hacked. Their websites were. We know that the threats are there, and we know that there's talk of these things. Common sense should tell us we should take the steps to be better prepared without question. So if you have any questions right now, please just type in the chat box there. If not, then I'm going to wrap this up in just a couple of minutes. But if anybody has any reason why they don't think that it would be a good idea to sign up for this course, or why it's not important to even prepare better, then feel free to throw it out there. And let's talk about it for a minute before we wrap this up. But I will say this: brcoalition.com website to go to for information on the BREP course and to get on board and get moving forward. If you do not choose to purchase the course, so be it, but do something. Take some steps. Get yourself in a position where you're thinking, if power was shut down, if I didn't have fuel to cook food in my home, for example, if it's an electric range and stovetop that you've got, and that's shut off, now you have no oven, no range, or maybe gas is shut off, you run out of propane and can't get it refilled, depending on what your method is of fuel for cooking. And what if that's shut down? How would you cook food? What if power is shut down? How would you keep your refrigerator or freezer, deep freeze, from thawing out and losing all the food in there? Do you have backup power? For example, a solar powered backup battery station, which is quiet, and because you can charge it through solar panels and you can get some really good equipment out there now, it makes it in many ways more efficient and more effective and safer than using a gas powered generator. Gas powered generators always will make noise, and they've got to be outside because of exhaust, obviously, which sends a message to anybody or everybody around, because they can hear a generator from a long ways away. And that tells them that you not only have fuel, it tells them that you may have other things as well, and that can make you a target. So having a backup solar powered battery station is a great way to do that. It is, to have power and make sure that you're able to use a cook stove or a cooktop, to cook food. Or, some would say, well, I'm just going to go outside and light a fire in the backyard. That might work depending on the weather, but maybe you need something that's a little less high profile, like something along the lines of this little gadget here. This is called an Instafire, and it's just a small little, relatively smokeless, and does not show a lot of fire because the fire is down inside. You get your pot, just sits right on the top here. And that way you still have means to cook something and keep it low profile. And you might need to keep it low profile because the circumstances might be such that you don't want to draw attention because society might not be doing too well at that time. We've seen this throughout history in every part of the country, in every part of the world. So I'm going to wrap this up here, I think, in a minute, but I do want to say that, we just had something come in here. The proverbial hurricane is offshore now and is looking to come ashore. We have time now to prepare. BRC will help you. If you don't know where to start, don't wait. That's awesome. Thank you very much for throwing that in there. I appreciate that. That really is the goal. BRC is there, and we've created this whole process, this whole course to help people be better prepared. And when we hear stuff, as was mentioned in here, the proverbial hurricane is offshore now and looking to come ashore. There's so much talk. We've seen food production plants be hit with things like strange, spontaneous fires. In 2 cases, private airplanes crashed into a couple of food production plants within the last year and set them on fire. 18,000 plus head of cattle were destroyed in the panhandle of Texas a month and a half or so ago due to some unusual explosion. So these things have happened. We had a baby formula shortage a year ago, roughly, which terrified a lot of people. So we have seen these things. We know there's talk of a collapse of the dollar and a central bank problem, and basically the government getting a little more powerful than it should be. So we do know that these things are out there. Michelle saying, no like-minded people near me, not in my parish either. At 75, alone, female, what do you suggest? Michelle, I would suggest first and foremost that you just take the steps that you can on your own. And remember that 75 even, there are many, many good things you can take. If you have our course, the BREP course, that will help guide you in that. If you don't have the course and aren't interested in getting the course, then at least go to the BR Coalition YouTube channel that you're on right now and check out the podcast that we have and several videos that we have put out that help with things like water and solar power, backup battery stations. And you can take steps in those areas to at least provide for yourself. And I promise you this, Michelle, and I would say this to anybody else out there who's questioning or thinking about this point. you will find that God does things sometimes only when we need it and not before. So the grace oftentimes is not provided in advance. God is really good about wanting to see that we trust him and that we will not lose trust, and we'll strive for patience in trust. So there are people, and Michelle, you're not alone. I've heard this from many people, that they feel alone. They don't have a lot of support. Some don't have any support. Some can't find people that are like-minded to build community with in their parish, their neighborhood, their family. And so I would say the same thing to you that I've said to them. God will provide that when the time is right. Your job, at least right now, is to take care of what you have control over and know that God will be ready to bring to you or you to someone else at the right time that help, that connection when it's necessary. Michelle's asking, I want to take your course. Is it something I can do? Absolutely, Michelle, it is. If you go out to brcoalition.com, again, the deal is good until I'm not sure how the parameters of it, but there's an hour and a half left. It closes, the doors close at 7:30. No, 7 o'clock. Forgive me, 7 o'clock Central Time. It's 5:30. That's what I'm looking at. I'm going to wrap this up in just a minute. 7 o'clock tonight. So an hour and a half. Great deal on the course right now. Go out to brcoalition.com. And next comment there, BRC equals community. That's right. That's the great thing about this, Michelle, and anybody else out there who sees this or is watching. We offer 2 lives a month where I get on and talk basically about a lot of different things. We have something called Circle Community. This is not through YouTube. It's not through Facebook. This is a separate piece. So if you get signed up, you're going to get an account, and that account is going to allow you to get into the community, and you'll have other people to communicate with. There are people that are posting on the Circle Community every single day. They share all kinds of great stuff, spiritual as well as natural things. So it's water storage and how to secure your home, make it safer. And then you've got people talking about faith and prayer. So it's a great community where people back each other, support each other. And during the lives, there are people that are chiming in and communicating with each other from all over the country, from Canada, from Australia, Austria, the Philippines. We have people from Ireland, Scotland. And so there's a great community in BRC of people who just get together, support each other. There are some places where they actually know each other locally and they spend time connecting that way as well. So there is a great community to help each other. And Michelle, you are not alone. You speak for a lot of people out there who understand the times are serious, need to do something and not sure exactly what to do. Well, you can do it. You can get it done. And if you want to do it through BRC, we can absolutely help you. It will work. brcoalition.com, everybody. brcoalition.com. Okay, a couple last comments, and then I'm going to have to go here. What do you think about St. Benedict medals around your house? Do they need to be blessed? Yes, I am in favor of that. I have them hanging over my door. I have one around my neck on my scapular, my brown scapular, St. Benedict medals, but they do need to be blessed. And it's best to get the old, more traditional blessing over them, which you can find. Ask a priest for the more traditional St. Benedict blessing of those medals. But I have a large one so big hanging over the front door. I actually have little miniature brown scapulars wrapped around the doorknobs of all my exterior doors of my house. That was something that was encouraged by a Carmelite order, religious order down in New Mexico. I was down there and they recommended that. And that's something I just started to do as well. So yes, St. Benedict medals, you can bury them. I know Father Jim Blunt, who's been on our U.S. Grace Force podcast twice now in the last 3 weeks. And he said he's part of a community in Georgia. And they have a refuge basically, and they're building their stockpiles. They are burying metals. They have buried metals, I should say, all around the land. And they have stored up food and water and solar powered backup battery stations. So he is a great example of the spiritual and the natural preparation. So yes, I am very much a fan of St. Benedict medals, blessed medals, miraculous medals being buried in the ground around your home, not as a good luck charm. These are sacramentals, and sacramentals are an irritant to the diabolical forces. So that's why we have blessed objects around us, like blessed crucifix, the statue of Our Lady of Fatima has been blessed. I've got blessed salt and holy water. I keep it with me all the time. So having sacramentals, blessed crucifixes, medals, excellent idea to do. Let me see, MC saying great course content and a great community, very informative. Thank you very much, MC. I appreciate that. That's a great comment. and very helpful. God bless you for that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up here and let you all go. And remember, 7 p.m. Central tonight, brccoalition.com. And we have a great deal going on until then. After that, you still have access to the course, but this is a really smooth setup deal that they've put together for us behind the scenes there. So get out there to brcoalition.com, share this information with others. Still about an hour and a half left here. And let's do the best we can to be as prepared as possible spiritually all the time in every way. Yes, most important, everything is rooted in the spiritual. But let's don't forget that we also need to be thinking about the corporal works of mercy, which our salvation is dependent upon, according to Matthew chapter 25, separating the sheep and the goats. And when you saw me hungry or thirsty or needed shelter or needed care, you did it or you didn't do it. When, Lord, both sides ask. And in both cases, he says, when you see it in the least of my brothers, or when you don't do it to the least of my brothers, you're doing it or not doing it to me. So Jesus makes it clear. The natural physical pieces of the puzzle are essential. You can't just say to somebody, hey, God bless you. I'm going to pray with you and trust Jesus, even though I know you're starving, but I'm not going to give you any food. That wouldn't make any sense. So we have to be working on both spiritual and natural. Okay. All right. You guys have been fantastic. Appreciate you being with me on this very short, quick YouTube live. I want to encourage you all, go to brcoalition.com before 7 o'clock tonight Central Time. Share this information with others. Let others know about it. There are people out there praying and wondering, dear God, what do I do? This might be an answer to their prayer. God works through ordinary means. Oftentimes, he works through ordinary means. Perfect example. When the power company calls and says, hey, your bill is late, you got to make that payment. I never say to them, look, just trust Jesus. He's going to take care of this. If I did, they'd say to me, well, then you trust Jesus, you're going to have power because we're flipping that switch and shutting it off. We all know common sense says that God put us in a natural world and we need to pay our bill in order to have the electricity. It's the same with buying food, paying the mortgage, putting gasoline in the car. You don't drive down the road, run out of gas and say, we're just going to trust Jesus is going to make this car move. Jesus is going to say, look, I put gas stations all around you and I gave you common sense. And Jesus would probably very readily say to us, common sense should dictate that you need to look at the gas gauge, realize that that needle's getting low, and go to a gas station and put gas in the tank. So keep all that in mind. Pray like crazy, and then take the steps necessary on a natural level to be ready as well. Body, mind, and soul, let's be better prepared and take care of food, water, shelter, medical defense, build the community, and just be better gifts to one another in this world. All right. All right, everybody. I appreciate you being with me. I'm going to wrap this up, and God bless you all. Remember that hope is found when you have a plan of action in the face of a crisis. Let's be instruments of hope in this world. Let's let God work through us to be instruments of hope to others in this world. All right. God bless and strengthen you. We'll see you again soon.